I load the save. I load the save. I thought I was done with this. I redid the fucking game. And I just fucking come in and I see 1964 Winter Olympics a success. Anyhow, top of the morning to you, laddies. Laddies and lassies. Boys and girls. Kids of all ages. My name is Dogboat333, and welcome back to Odds of Iron 4, the new order. Last days of the year. Okay, we can finally go. Last video. We started trying to not shit our bed economically. So, got too little too late. Which I think we've read before, so we're just going to go with it. Oh, yo, guys! The 1964 Winter Olympics was a success, with current events as tense as ever. Respite has finally arrived with the Winter Olympics in Calgary, Canada. Thought to be an organizational impossibility due to just having 3 months to prepare, Calgary has shown it can be just as good a host as the snowy, mountainous town of Innsbruck, Austria, forced to give the event due to the German Civil War. The games attracted great public attention. With their success, brought some much-needed pride to the nation. Despite not as many nations attending as in previous games, Calgary kept the events as exciting as ever. In the end, the top teams have proven to be Finland, with an overwhelming 14 gold medals, the United States with 5 gold, and home nation Canada with 4. Man, that's a quaint little event. I don't know how many people have ever seen that one before, but I think it's pretty fun and interesting. All that in just 3 months? All that indeed. All fucking that. Go Canada. Yes, indeed, Maple Tree. Yes, indeed. So, chat, how are you guys doing? How's the, gap? Okay. And Kev is not here, so he won't be, tried to fucking die on Minecraft, fuck yeah, okay. You asked me, Tausik, said Brendan Korsh, stepping Lamass's office after a long session of Doyle. Yes. I have some concerns. Well, I have a big one, said Lamass, plopping the thick pad of papers that served as the Labour Party's solution to the economic crisis. Thank you for reading in such a timely matter. If I can clarify, attempt to convince you of anything, I'll be happy to do it. It's all well thought out, of course, superbly so. Ireland takes a short-term hit to the national debt for the purpose of expanding the middle class and improving the overall quality of our workforce. How did you put it? Yes, create a system that allows the workers to take pride in their labor. Track the international markets with high-quality goods made by well-paid industrial force. And, as you've written, this makes us less reliant on industrial powers like Germany or the United States by giving us an edge when trading with less industrialized neutral nations. Thank you, sir. May I ask exactly what your big concern is? Yes, well, it's obvious that your party has bent itself over backwards to make this all sound convincing to my ears, Korsh. My concern is that it rather seemed to have worked. It will never be Lamass's plan A, but he'll make it work if it comes to it. Or will he? Arthur gripped a can of orange spray in a white-knuckled fist. It may have been nothing but paint, but it was the only rifle a 13-year-old boy could hope to wield until he was older. Arthur was ready to fight for his community, ready to fight for a free and independent Ulster. He hadn't chosen the fight, it had been brought to him. How else could there be peace when all the Catholics in the school found any excuse on the world to beat him? How could he turn the other cheek when the Greens wouldn't leave him alone? Arthur felt a revolutionary fire in him from an early age, but the adults told him he could join the fight when he was older. None of them could comprehend. The fight was here now, and Arthur was already part of it. He looked up to his uncle James. James was a UVF man to his core, a man who would proudly show off the bruises he earned in fights with the Papist bastards. Even Uncle James told Arthur he was too young when Arthur asked for help joining the UVF. Arthur's lips lifted to grin as he admired the art he made in a night of rebellion. So what if he didn't let him fight on the streets? There were other ways to contribute to the cause. Reporters flocked to his handiwork in the morning, and different UVF factions each fought to take the credit for what he had made. There on a big white wall on the edge of town, using nothing but paint and stencils he swiped from school, Arthur had written the words that would go down in history as the emblem of a troubled era. You are now entering free Londonderry. Fun. Which is it right here? I forget. There's Derry. Damn, if we had Kev here, we could ask him where that is. This is a new focus tree. It is. Oh, blimey. Okay. Let's go ahead and read this first. I help you away. You could have prevented this whole thing. Cautious words stung Lamass far more than he was willing to admit, even to himself. The man was not of such importance to the government. He would have swung back in a much less literary manner. But even that would not have removed from nagging in the back of his mind that constant questions if what he did and carries on doing is right. I've done nothing but what's best for Ireland at all times, and I plan to continue doing just that. Now, let's just move on to what we can do rather than whatever any of us did not do in the past, huh? For starters, we need to really start letting the Americans invest in Ireland. I'll have the whole cycle repeat with the US instead of the Germans. I rather hope not. We need to rely on no one but ourselves. That way, this chaos will never come back to haunt us. Corsh nodded with slight approval, seeing the Lamass try to keep his face from drooping in despair. Nothing can ever come easy in Ireland, but this was ridiculous. Hammering out a new economic policy was going to be a Herculean task, and Lamass knew he had vanishingly little willingness to overcome such an obstacle. But he was not about to let his growing hopelessness catch on. He had always been a fighter, so to fight was his only option if we were to hang on. We move forward. Gaming indeed, Turtle. Nice to see you, sir. And so we got austerity. Depends a lot on the right. Hire Disney. Okay. What do... Well, this is going to restart the investor thing, which I don't know if we want to do that, because that was a bit complicated. And I'm not doing that. Will the face cam be uploaded? No. Face cam never goes up on YouTube. This is my little gift to all you Twitch people. To look at me. Looks like all of these will restart the investment projects. So, doesn't matter too much. Now, what are you guys thinking? We have austerity, which is self-reliance and focusing on the economy. The New Republic, which looks like it's focusing on helping the middle class out a lot. This here seems a little rough. Or investments in trying to kind of do both. What is... It's an interesting one. I'd say austerity. Well, first we need to get to that point anyway, so it's not going to matter too much. But let's think about it for a little bit. Ireland is a land of relative peace and prosperity compared to the rest of Europe, or perhaps it might be better to say that it used to be such. We cannot in good conscience ignore the realities of our situation any longer. We are now in economic depression, and our people will soon be begging in the streets should we do nothing about it. Of course, the actual course of action we shall take is something of an open question. There are enough conflicting interests and political heavyweights shoving their opinions around in this issue that it could well be a challenge to solve it all. Still, we are not a land renowned for inaction. We shall bring Ireland back to her glory, for we fear what could occur if we do not. So we got all that going. All this going on. This is all a little different, so I don't know how much you guys caught up. Let me check the economy again real quick. Counting our pennies a little bit. Turn off auto payments. We're at okay credit. I think we'll go ahead. Go fresh off the presses. Try our best to get inflation under control for a while. I think it's time to start focusing on growth. And the frames are killing me. We're starting to go. Also, sadly, our good laddie Kev is not here right now, it seems. But we don't get too excited because we did dry. Don't get too excited because I did go ahead and set it back to Tabby. Ooh. Delegation of Welsh diplomats have arrived in Dublin yesterday, proposing a new and potentially beneficial treaty, which will diversify their foreign trade and attract investments, and are willing to offer preferential treatment to our companies and potentially lucrative trade deals, provided that we reciprocate. While most economic advisors are in favor of the treaty, there are some who oppose it, considering it risky and foolish to commit to a long-term agreement with a nation in a position as precarious as Wales. However, it is the Prime Minister who would sign it, and as such, he has the final matter to say. Political power. Let's cooperate with our Welsh friends. I think we could use that. So, Russia's going to be gaming in a second. Ooh. So there starts the 100-day crisis. Okay, wow. I gotta say this is a cool ass fucking. Holy shit! Look at that. That is cool. Excuse me. Have I seen the TNO copy boss that just dropped? Probably. Brazilian chef focus tree. I know, man. That's fucking sick. The Doyle was never an orderly place, but even the optimist among its members would be hard-pressed to remember a time when the mood was less joyful. For the many amongst its ranks, the reality of the situation they faced was only just beginning to set in. The reality that, with the advent of a German bubble bursting, the Irish economy, and potentially Ireland herself, could soon enough follow. And yet, as the debate raged, it appeared apparent to observers that several camps had entered among parliamentarians. Some favored line with Americans, some favored isolation until the tides of international visitor politics had calmed. Few even thought it was best to wait until a victor emerged in the right in line with whoever had won the bloody conflict. What was explicitly clear, however, was that the Doyle needed to be unified on the decision they eventually took. else the international troubles Ireland face might tear it apart before foreigners even got the chance. Well, let's get back to the drawing board then. And we will need all the parties on board with what we are about to do if it is to have any chance of succeeding. All the factions and cliques, everyone of influence, will need some say in the planning process, or at least some method of making their desires understood. Naturally, we will choose what is best of Ireland at the end of it, yet we cannot escape the necessity that broad support in the political class is vital to getting anything done around here. On a secondary note, we should see to what degree our foreign officers can inform us of the desires of the Americans and the Reich. If one or the other is especially open, it might be beneficial to choose one course of action over another. We got a gamer over in France. The resistance seems to be pushing back. They kind of... Yeah, no mercy, no steps back, no blood. We'll see if that works. So I don't know what's going on outside. I try not to record while there's TV going on outside, but I can't right now because I gotta go somewhere else for work tomorrow. Because I'm carpooling up with other people, so I kind of have to record or stream now, I should say. Michael Alewife walked around the farm to the shed. As he was walking, he could feel the air nipping at his hands. He cupped his hands to his face in an attempt to warm them with his breath. While it worked for a few moments, the sensation faded away quickly. He came upon the shed as he unlocked the door before entering. Once he was inside, he grabbed the nearest bag of feed and began to walk back. He could feel his back beginning to ache. 15 years of working on a farm doesn't do the greatest wonders at times. He finally came to corral with the animals inside. Unlike most farms in Ireland, this one had mostly pigs instead of sheep. He cut open the bag with a knife and dumped the feed into a trough. Suddenly 3 little piglets came out of the shelter and came to the trough. Michael smiled and walked away. He walked down his truck. Already there was his business partner, Louis. Louis handed him a clipboard with a hastily written report of products that had been loaded onto the truck. Louis had been up since the early hours of the morning, loading up the truck for transit across the North Sea and English Channel into the heart of Europe. Sometimes it would sting to see the trucks leave a farm, no matter helping Ireland, but the war machine of Europe. Michael would feel this sometimes, but usually this feeling was alleviated when he was given a nice stack of pounds. Never days, honest work. Yeah. Oh, blimey, that's not good. Well, we're kind of running out of political power. I kind of want to go down the rising tide path. I think I've decided. Which one is that again? Paraguay? Fascist populism. Okay. Sean Lamasse's headache was growing. What had been a dull throb as he drove into Doyle today had become a splitting migraine as his skull attempted to declare independence from the rest of his head. The bickering of his partymen was the clear cause of the affliction, though at this point he could hardly hear their quarrel about economic policy over the pulsing agony of his head. Damn it, I'm tired. Why? Finally, after 2 MPs shot to their feet in anger with one another, knocking their chairs out from behind him, did Lamasse finally feel infuriated enough to step in. Does anyone remember what the word coalition means? It means that while we don't agree on everything, we cooperate and compromise. I have a preferred policy. McKenty has a preferred policy. Corish has a preferred policy. Every man in here has an opinion on which bloody plan we should follow, and we all despise what the others have proposed. Lamasse paused as every member's party stared at him in confusion, most assuming he was about to make a play to have his own economic proposal come out ahead. He shook his head at the notion. He wanted to get his own way, just as the others did, but this wasn't time to be partisan with his own party. There's such a thing as a good plan done poorly. If we step forward with a plan that you agree with, you'll still be ruined by the rest of the party sabotaging in anger that their own plan wasn't chosen well instead. Likewise, there's such a thing as a bad plan done well. Perhaps the plan we choose won't be the one that pleases you personally, but Ireland will be much better off if we work together to see the best version of that policy implemented. Whatever's chosen, we in a foil LP coalition must stand by it and rally around it, whether we personally agree with the policy or not. Anything less would simply be sabotaging Ireland's future. Next, let's choose a plan. Sean Lamass, Sean McEntee, Brendan Corish. Three men who each have a vision for Ireland's future, which promises to be full of wealth for all, and for us most of all. Yet, in a perhaps fitting dilemma, each and every one of their policies is indirectly at odds with one another. Lamass wants us to be Americans, headless of what the Germans would say. Corish is practically a socialist who wants all the political problems implied. McEntee wants to all but cut us off from the global markets and reinstate austerity, heedless of a human cost. Yet each of their plans has promise. We need only choose the one which benefits Ireland the most. Let's go ahead and start then. Yeah, I think I want to go ahead and look. They're doing it, laddies. They're doing a pretty good push. Back. Which one is that? Okay. So not the pro-American one. Anyway, the sound of mixing paint was one that calmed Alan. The sound of sloshing paint reminded him of summers he would spend with his family in Dover. As he mixed, he thought back to what he felt like a whole another world. Alan was once a lawyer, one with considerable amount of respect for his co-workers. He took the par exam in the waning days of peace in Europe. It felt like yesterday he was sitting in his flat preparing for it. All of that effort, all for a few years of stability. Alan had made a name for himself after taking the exam by taking a class that nearly half of the other members of law practice he joined avoided. It was a case regarding the influence of German companies inside England and the Greater British Isles. By stroke of luck, British intelligence had uncovered an effort by the companies to undermine Britain. Luckily, evidence had been submitted in time to help Alan win his case. By doing this, he becomes some sort of a local hero to the main publicists of South England. And for a few years, he was at peace. Then a war broke out and he was drafted. He served in a desperate battle for England, not before sending his wife and 2 children to Scotland, with a group of soldiers defecting to Scotland, promising he would join them. How this didn't come. The Scottish border had been locked down as he declared independence. Alan found a way off of England on a fishing boat to Ireland. When he landed, he was penniless at the bottom of society, far cry from life he had had. He soon snapped out of it as he realized he'd been mixing the paint for nearly 10 minutes. He added finishing touches to the fence and smiled. He was just happy to be alive and to find a purpose. He examined his work, proud of what he did. And then I want to see restoring public trust. This looks like it's a good way to get extra political power. All right. Lamass told him he would think it over. Then he needed to sleep on it before he made his call. There was a big decision he would have to make, and he wanted to explore the options. Having now found the decision was extremely hard. As the options were limited, the party would be behind him no matter which one he picked. The first plan in front of him was the Tanast's plan. Sean McEntee wanted to take control of a rising deficit and trade gap. As mine Ireland had become too reliant on foreign trade, and the German stranglehold had ended up killing it when the foreign trade had gone away. Strict protectionism would be put in place to prevent such a thing from ever happening again. As for the budget shortfall, any decrease in revenue would be made up for with a decrease in spending. British course, on the other hand, found austerity was the exact opposite way to solve the problem. The main problem wasn't that the government did not have the money to spend, it was that the people of Ireland did not having any either. Under his plan, a set of relief programs aimed at the lower middle class would be put into place with the goal of giving them what they need to run the crisis and eventually start spending again. These plans had their merits, but perhaps Mas knew better. He had done some thinking of his own, and he felt there was a more simple solution to the crisis, one that did not require large deficits or unpopular spending cuts. Now the German was in a series of violent death throes. Who could stop Ireland from making some favorable deals with the OFN? And then they would fill the gaps and never rely solely on the Germans again. In the end, Mas decided just before going to bed and would inform the rest of the government in the morning. I think we're going to call Washington and begin to play nice. Sean Lemass, quite the controversial figure, that one. The game he advocates we play is a dangerous one, indeed with some potentially quite severe consequences should we fall off the proverbial tightrope as he asked we cross. But that was messy. In short, Lemass advocates that Ireland pull more generally towards the OFN more than the Einheitspact. Given our relationship with the former Commonwealth in general, and the English in particular, that is asking a lot. The question is, can we trust Germany to act rationally anymore? If we tie ourselves too closely to the behemoth of the Reich, we may get pulled under with it. The Americans, whatever their flaws, are always happy to make some money. Yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot. Oh, there goes the resistance. That is beautiful. Look at them go. Well, they're starting to get beat back, I think. Honestly, don't know who's winning or who's losing. Looks like the CSR has one. And yes, CSR. So it's the PRC versus Tomsk. Modernists versus, I don't know, no one's ever played the PRC, so I don't know what they were like. Getting the poverty rate down, which is very, very nice. Monthly population gain is not bad, I'll take it, but that expense, I don't know. Looks like Cheetah's winning over here, or Coots is kind of chilling out. The AB versus them. Interesting. And nothing's going on in the west quite yet. So we'll go ahead and get some research going first. Let's do that. And then eyes to the west. Relationship with Reich has never been what one might call cordial. Their business interests used us when they could. In return, we were not subject to fate in Norway, Denmark, and Poland. Their track record with abiding by the wills of even staunch allies is somewhat poor, so it falls to us to make the assessment whether sticking solely with Germany from an economic prospect is viable economically. Right now, it's not looking so good for the Krauts. The Americans have more money, historical ties, more Irishmen than the Reich does. International politics is not a game for the faint of heart or sentiment. Ireland knows that which will benefit it best. There we go. We'll get shut. I think we got. Oh, we still have Nixon. Isn't Nixon supposed to be gone right now, guys? I forget. I am. The American State Department spokesperson walked in front of cameras. It was a typical briefing, one that wouldn't be shared live on national television, but one that might have a segment or two in the evening news, maybe a choice quote in the Washington Post the next day. Good evening. 1943, for joining the Axis powers, the Republic of Ireland was subjected to Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, barring all trade with it. After war, Ireland had been deemed subject to the TWEA, as it remained a staunch ally of Nazi Germany. Today, however, after high-level negotiations, Ireland has agreed to mutual thought relations with the United States of America, and as such will not be pursuant to the TWEA. This was real news, more than some briefing on the foreign aid. Cameras flashed, the spokesperson continued. The Secretary of State, the State Department, concluded that Ireland is no longer a threat to the interests of America or allies, so sanctions against it are not necessary. Ireland is actively engaged with the United States, and thus the reason for sanctions is no longer applicable. Rather, from this point forward, the United States will allow more favorable deals with the Irish as a condition for further alignment in American interests. The briefing caught the interest of many think tanks and policymakers, but was not noticed by many outside of Washington or Wall Street. In Ireland, however, the briefing was put on television on the top of the hour as a special report. Many in Dublin were happy, and many bottles of champagne were uncorked that night. While in Germany, the members of the Foreign Office could only stare furiously at the taped events, and all pondered the significance of this event. The Atlantic narrows, and the Irish Sea widens. So our GDP growth is going to increase a lot. The OFN releases their embargo. Shush, Owen. The movie's starting now. Owen and Maggie Ward had been staying with their parents for the weekend as their parents went on a business trip together to Cork. I think that means grandparents. I think they meant to say grandparents for one of those. They had an early dinner and had been constructed a little theater in the backyard. The grandfather had been an entertainment producer in his 30s and 40s, working across the Atlantic with directors like Orson Welles and other famous fighters. While his heyday was certainly over, he was still an old movie projector that had been left in a film studio when Germans had arrived in Ireland. It was only a few years after war's end when he went back to check the studio. It had been largely abandoned, but the projector was still there. He disabled and loaded into his car, bringing it back to their house, where he would use it to show smuggled in films. Many of them would come from his old partners who would come to Ireland for business trips, not before giving him a few reels of film. As the movie started, Maggie asked a question about this unfamiliar film, which was referred to as a Western. Who's Clint Eastwood? And with that, I say goodbye to all the YouTube people, so, see you now about, folks.